Hello everyone, my name is Masterstarman, and welcome back for more Let's Play Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Last time, we went through the game and got every last non-online achievement in the game. That was a mouthful, try saying that 10 times fast. In this video, we're going to be going over some of the things we still have not had a chance to go over yet. To start things off, we will begin by discussing a poster that comes with the game. Okay, so I don't exactly have my English poster anymore, but since I'm Canadian, the game also came bundled with a French poster as well. I considered getting my buddy Miles to translate this, and we were in discussion about that, but I just wasn't able to get him to do that. It was something that we actually had plans to do when we recorded the video, but just completely slipped my mind when we actually did that. But anyways, on one side of the poster, you just have some simple character bios about who the cast of Nuts and Bolts is. You know, it's nothing too special. But on the other side, there's actually some blueprints for things that you can customize. There are a few things to note, however. This image of a bike chassis does not work. You can't rotate wheels on their sides and expect them to drive properly. I've tried this one many times and I just couldn't get this bike to work properly. Second, it shows the blueprint of Grunty's vehicle, which I get why, but you can never actually recreate this. For some reason, Grunty's seat, which this blueprint loves to highlight, is exclusive to her and it's not an actual item in the game. I also find it interesting they show the super fuel on some of these vehicles, as well as some items like the laser. The super fuel requires at least 90 jiggies in order to get, so while they're cool vehicles, you'll be waiting a really long time before you can get them, and by that point you'd probably already have some halfway decent cars, helicopters, boats, and whatever else anyway. I mean, heck, on topic of decent boats, I didn't change my boat since I made it, so... But that's not what we're here to talk about, believe it or not. In the meat and potatoes of this video, we're going to be discussing the demo of this game, because believe it or not, the demo is actually very different than the final game that we got, and I think there's some things worth showing off. For starters, there's a different advisory screen, and I find this interesting that this advisory screen isn't actually anywhere in the game itself. I don't totally know why. I also find it really interesting that the game has a different title screen that shows Banjo-Land instead of just Spiral Mountain. And it actually reminds me of the original Banjo-Kazooie in that if you wait long enough, it shows little gameplay previews of all the stages, assuming you have them unlocked. I just think it's a really nice little treat. Probably not an intentional throwback, but we'll get more into that later. There's also surprisingly the option for multiplayer in the demo. I don't have a way of showing this off right now, while it probably lacks many of the game modes in the multiplayer. It is interesting that you and a friend can still mess around in the Testo track, even in the demo. Another minor change I noticed is the lack of the big text box option in the settings. This was probably because that was something added to the game via a patch at a later point after the release date. But yeah, you're gonna need to deal with the tiny ass font if you're gonna be playing the demo. The game starts you off from the point you first arrive in Showdown Town. The opening tutorial and cinematic is largely the same, but with a few notable differences. One of the major differences is that the demo actually has a different text box design than the one in the final game. In some ways I like this, but I can see why they changed it to be easier to understand and to be more like the older style text boxes. White on black is just easier to see than white on gray, I guess. On a random note, it kind of reminds me a bit of the text boxes from the N64 Mario Party games, but that's beside the point. One extremely notable change, however, is the starting items you get from Mumbo, and the crates throughout Showdown Town in general. There are a grand total of 7 in the demo. These crate numbers are also a lot different than the ones in the final game. For example, the ghost crate near Mumbo's has the number 35, whereas it's normally crate 40-something in the actual game. Another interesting thing of note is that the 7th crate replaces the jiggle vent switch atop L.O.G's arcade. You also have access to many more items than you don't normally have access to this early on. Some of these items include floaters, which you normally don't get until you beat Grunty and Logbox, and even propellers and wings. I know why they give you these options, it's to let people try out other kinds of vehicles before they normally have a chance to build these. Interestingly, another item they give you is torpedoes, and while I love these items, I'm baffled by this inclusion. It's a great item to be sure, but you normally don't get these until around the time you have the laser, which is way later on in the game. I did notice a couple of various omissions, such as the lack of L and T-shaped poles and panels, though it's not a huge inconvenience. Wumpa also has some more unique items and blueprints in her stock, including vehicles like the planes. She has a medium engine, and she also gives you a few more freebies than you normally get as well. As I'm sure you've noticed, Showdown Town is extremely restrictive to just the starting area. I actually tried to use the hover trick to bypass some of the boundaries, and it really didn't work too well. I tried to also access the crate from the top of the tower, but I didn't have the combination. Otto still actually has some info for sale in the demo, but he does not have the tower combination. But besides that, most of the things that the townsfolk seem to say is pretty much about the same, I think. However, by far the biggest change in the demo is the starting world. In the demo, the world you get to explore is Banjo-Land. This area appears where Nutty Acres normally shows up and not over by Trophy Thomas's house like in the main game. And interestingly, this Banjo-Land has 4 missions. If you recall, the original Banjo-Land Act 1 only has 3. On top of that, 2 of these missions aren't actually in Act 1. You still have the race with Klungo and the defending Clanker mission. However, you also have access to the Kickball mission, which is normally in Act 2, and surprisingly, an entirely new race using the Camel vehicle that, as far as I know, does not appear until Act 5. I find this very interesting and wonder why this race doesn't normally appear in the main game itself. It's not very challenging, I basically got the trophy on my first try, but it's definitely something interesting and worth taking a look at if you have the chance. Like, I mean, the demo's free to download, so you might as well try it out if you want. I also decided to try out the Jinjo mission, which doesn't serve much purpose, but it's there, it's hurling, it's really not too bad. I also managed to get what must be my closest Trophy Thomas trophy yet. I only got the Klungo Race trophy by 6 milliseconds. I thought that was pretty cool, especially that actually gave me some trouble in the main game. During this time showing off a couple of the missions, I figured now would be a really good time to discuss something that I haven't gotten a chance to discuss yet. I remember my first time I ever saw the trailer for this game, and that was back sometime in 2006. I used to watch a show on G4 back in the day called Cheat. It was a show dedicated to showing how to play a game. Yeah, that was a very, very different time for us. But yeah, the show was actually a very major influence on me as a Let's Player, because it was a time where I could just turn on an actual TV show that was broadcast on public television and just watch someone playing through Zelda Twilight Princess. I thought that was awesome. Back to nuts and bolts though. I recall the trailer for this game just showing up during a commercial break, during one episode I guess, and at the time, I had no reason to believe this game would have been so mixed. I was excited for this game. I genuinely was. I didn't get to play it for a little bit after it came out, but because I didn't have an Xbox 360 at the time, but I was excited. And I noticed this the other day too. Nuts and Bolts has recently celebrated its 10th birthday. Wow, I feel old. If you've watched some, or most, or even any of this Let's Play and enjoyed it, I think that's a sign that the game isn't actually as bad as people made it out to be, and that now more than ever, I think it's worth giving Nuts and Bolts a second chance. You might discover something you never knew you would have about this game. I genuinely do really like this game. And I'm happy that this Let's Play has given me a lot of really good memories to go out on. For finishing off in Banjo Land, I decided to go back to the overworld to deposit my jiggies, and I was actually a bit surprised to find out that it opened up an Act 2. What was in Banjo Land Act 2? I was actually really curious, because I thought this demo was only one level. Well, it was just a trailer for the game, and the end of the demo. And you know what song it uses for this? I cannot escape this freaking song. In all seriousness, again, I don't think this is a terrible song by any means, and I like that it is actually something new that you can use in the DLC, to hear in the DLC. But I got sick of hearing it after a while. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the penultimate episode of this series. We've done everything else in this game, besides the final level. We've shown off aspects of the multiplayer. We've had various guests for the multiplayer to show that off. We did the entire DLC. We went around collecting every achievement, did every main side quest in Showdown Town. There's pretty much like nothing else left. Join me back next time for the final episode of my final Let's Play. Thank you guys for watching. I've been Masterstarman. Peace out.